can look at the markers before women entered in the workplace, and we were very prosperous.
Lower life expectancy, lower GDP, lower productivity. What are you talking about?
Women exited the workforce tomorrow would increase drastically. There's no way around that.
And then they would decrease. Yes, your consumer base would fall, your overall level of wealth would fall, your overall, like, everything.
Why would your consumer base fall?
Women entering the work.
Why would your consumer base fall? Oh my god. I didn't even catch that when I first watched this.
If you were to reduce the women's participation in the workforce, you would see a massive increase in salary, more than likely for men. That follows, in fact.
No, it doesn't follow.
How does it not?
This is just like such common sense bullshit that he's completely going against. Holy fuck. So earlier today, as of the time of this upload, I came across a video from Andrew Wilson's channel where he's going in a 1v4 debate against Destiny and a few other people who I don't know the names of, I'm not gonna lie. And I watched this already. Oh my gosh, Andrew is so stupid. And for some reason, Destiny doesn't really capitalize on it, so I'm going to be critiquing both of them when it comes to it. Destiny is correct in a lot of things here, but I'm going to point out why exactly I don't necessarily think he won this debate, even while he's being correct. And other than that, just like, subscribe, share the video and everything like that, and well, let's just get started.
I don't know how to, he's not even wrong. Like, that's how juvenile the understanding is. Like, when you start to throw, like, supply, demand.
I know I'm not wrong.
Already, I saw that, and I was like, what kind of phrasing is that? Of course he's fucking wrong. He's both wrong and juvenile. You just gave him a lot of ammo there for a coming up clip, as you see.
To try to explain.
There's the Joker laugh he always does.
Lana, okay, I want to let Andrew answer Lana's question before we move on.
This doesn't like.
What would be an alternative to Me Too?
So I would try to move towards a patriarchal system where women were slowly phased out of the workplace altogether, and then that solves this problem.
There are so many things wrong with that, and we're going to go into them as he tries to explain his rationale.
Okay, I disagree.
How would we survive and live?
The same way that we survived and lived for most of our history, which is without women inside the workforce.
Men would abandon their homes to go to.
Women have been working inside the workforce for a lot of human history, actually. And more indigenous tribes, before the state came to be, women did a lot of work and helped alongside the men with hunting, with gathering. It was mostly equal because, like, you can't just have men do everything, especially if you don't have that many men, especially in society, such as these older societies. We've actually done studies on this. Anthropology shows women have been working alongside men with physical labor and all of that kind of stuff for a lot of human history, maybe even most of human history, up until recently when the whole patriarchy in the state came into play.
Other women, the first divorce case was because the guy ditched his wife and his kids and went to be with another woman.
Which has what to do with anything?
I'm a widow. Yeah. I mean, like, what would I do?
What does it have to do with anything?
It has to do with everything.
What does it have to do with it?
Survive? How will they survive?
The same way that they've always survived without women in the workforce. There was not a problem with the survival before women were in the workforce.
Look how vague he's being. He's trying to come up with an idea. He just keeps saying, the same way they did before, the same way they did before, the same way they did before. That's not an answer. You have to give specifics, Andrew, which is something that he's going to really struggle with throughout this debate, because I'm not sure he really prepared, to be honest, or he thinks that somehow just plowing through it with his vague gestures to something is somehow a coherent answer.
Problem with survival post. Women are enabled to be in the workforce only through the usage of technology. If you look at the
Wait, don't do this diet.
Women have been teaching and stuff and being nurses and everything for a long time now. What do you mean? You don't need technology to be a teacher, necessarily. I don't know what technology has to do with that, but...
Try answer the question. How would a woman, let's say a woman gets widowed, how does she survive?
She would probably remarry. But not only that, the assets of the husband...
Remarry to someone that she doesn't love or something like that? Like, what if she doesn't want to remarry? Do you think she should just die? That's kind of weird.
Always have traditionally gone to the woman. Not only that, there's usually an obligation from the family of the person you were widowed from who's going
That's
to help
assuming
you
the
out.
man was doing everything right. Like the man was just working hard all
we
the time,
can't
saving money
assess
that he had
we can't
assets.
assess all of society just based
that's
on
how
what
it is
if risks
now.
of what if a meteorite strikes you. That's not
How many
fair.
men do you
And I'm
think
sorry.
right
Hang on,
now-
let me finish, lady. I'm sorry that a meteorite might strike your husband and he might die, but we're not going to make a societal prescription based on that. That would be insanity. So yes, there's going to be some unfairness baked in, but we can't unfortunately alleviate all unfairness from every situation over all times. We can't.
Shouldn't we try to at least mitigate it though? Like, you're proposing an inherently unfair system that fucks over women and only benefits the men. Why do you have to propose the system that you acknowledge is inherently unfair? Why should women get the short end of the stick, so to speak, with this whole situation? It doesn't make sense to me.
Isn't it common right now that like the average savings rate is like negative for like people under 35? So basically every widow under the age of like 35 or 40 is just.
First of all, they're not. If you were to reduce the women's participation in the workforce, you would see a massive increase in salary, more than likely for men. That would that follows, in fact.
No, it doesn't follow.
How does it
Literally.
not?
This is just like such common sense bullshit that he's completely going against. Holy fuck. Women make up like half of the workforce here. You can't slowly phase out women from the workforce without major economic ramifications. Wages and salaries come from productivity, and that's only been able to go up ever since women have joined the workforce. If you try to get rid of them, especially in an ever-growing population, like, what are you going to replace them with? More men? We don't have enough men to replace all the women with.
It doesn't follow because the number one indicator of like countries becoming prosperous and successful is women entering the workforce and starting to own businesses. That's like one of the biggest indicators of it.
Destiny, you're familiar with supply and demand, right? If you have less workers, do you have more of a supply of workers or less of a supply?
You understand that when you go.
You have less of a. Sorry. You have less of a supply, but there's a difference between cutting down on the workforce a little bit to raise some salaries versus cutting down on half of the entire workforce, with some of these fields being dominated by women and collapsing the economy. Like, here's the question, Andrew. When it comes to this idea of salaries significantly increasing when you cut half of the workforce out, will the gains in salaries for men offset whatever salary you lose from women getting out of the workforce? Like, let's say there's a man and a woman living in a household together and they both have an income. If you get rid of that woman's salary, do you think that the salary that the man gains is going to offset the loss from the woman's salary? Of course not. That's fucking preposterous.
Answer my question like I just answered yours.
No, I'll answer your question.
Then just say
the
yes.
Supply and demand X graph is an incredibly crude and simplistic way to analyze markets. Yes, of course, if you remove all the women from the workforce, the men will get higher wages.
Then why did you just argue they wouldn't?
What?
Why did
they would maybe get marginally higher wages, but it's not going to offset the amount of money you lose in the household from the woman not working anymore. If a man and a woman makes $50,000 each for a grand total of $100,000 for X household, and you get rid of the woman's salary, do you think the man's salary is going to increase beyond $100,000 or even come close to that $100,000? No, it's not. That's preposterous. And he has no math to back this up at all. He's just saying shit because he doesn't like women.
Did you just argue they wouldn't?
Because every single economist in the world agrees with me and not you, Andrew.
Agrees with you about what? You just agreed with me.
Women start to own businesses.
Yeah, that's kind of a fuck up on Destiny, I'm not gonna lie. Even slightly conceding that, it doesn't make any kind of sense. Like, there's a way to kind of agree, but also show how stupid it is, because now he just gave Andrew some kind of rhetorical ammo to say, but you agreed with me, so I'm right. and eliminating all the nuance that comes from saying maybe you're right in a very short-term sense. Maybe they'll get like $5 increase, but it's not going to offset whatever salary that you lose from the woman not being able to make an income anymore.
The workforce
Bro, you just agreed with me and my position that if all women were exited from the workforce tomorrow, salaries for men would skyrocket. You literally just
They wouldn't skyrocket though. Maybe a very marginal increase, but nothing compared to what you would lose from women not being able to make an income anymore, especially under a dual income household. That's insane. I don't know where he gets that from.
Trillion less dollars in our economy.
Salaries might increase, Andrew. Do you think half the U.S. population would be good for the economy? Because now you've got
that's a red. So
like what happens?
So hang on. So phasing women out for one thing. There's a massive distinction between that and half the population. But assuming that we granted your hypothetical and half the population was somehow. Salaries would still increase for the half that were here. Yes, Destiny.
No, it wouldn't, because you have a significant decrease in productivity. Sure, maybe in the very short term, but in the very long term, when half of the population is not working and they're stuck at home doing chores or fucking feeding the kids or whatever, no. That is completely insane. It doesn't mathematically add up if you know anything about basic economics.
What would happen to productivity?
Not how it works.
Yes, then why did you just get done saying that that's how it works?
No, I didn't get done saying. You're using a high school supply-demand graph to analyze an entire worker economy. Workers are a supply in the economy. Generally, for an economy, you increase your supplies, you increase the standards of living, you increase the GDP, you increase wages across the board. Here's a question, Andrew.
So you just agreed with me again.
No, I didn't.
You did.
Andrew. I agree with you that
Andrew really lacks the concept of nuance, and I do agree that Destiny's phrasing is a little bit off here. He's kind of giving Andrew that like rhetorical ammo that he can use to say, but you agree with me, but you agree with me. But like I said, there's nuance here that Destiny really needed to include in his answer from the outset. That way Andrew wouldn't be able to say stuff like this. Because it's just like confident, arrogant, smug posturing for his audience. He knows that he'll be able to get a clip out of this, and that's exactly what he's trying to do with this. He's just going to keep saying that over and over because it'll make him look like the right one, even if he's completely fucking incoherent on economics. That's exactly how he works. He's basically like a street magician debater. He has very surface level tactics that look cool when you analyze them only from a surface level, but if you think about what he's saying for like 7 seconds, then it completely falls apart and he looks like an idiot.
Very crude supply-demand graph might seem to support what you're saying, but there's a whole bunch of reasons why a crude supply and
demand... Also, I just gotta say, I don't know why the fuck he shaved the beard here. It just looks... Grow the beard back, please.
Graph would never explain it's something entirely like wage markets for an entire society. That's absurd.
You just listen. You've agreed with me in every way you possibly can. You just keep deferring to, but there's other complexities which might come in. Okay, fair enough. There might be some other complexities that come in, but men's salaries,
he should have hopped on that immediately, saying complexities is just an understatement. You're fundamentally misunderstanding economics, and Destiny's kind of trying to do that. But like I said, the issue is he gave them just enough ammo to be able to use that as leverage against him the entire debate.
Women exited the workforce tomorrow would increase drastically. There's no way around that.
And then they would decrease. Yes, your consumer base would fall, your overall level of wealth would fall, your overall, like everything.
Why would your consumer base fall?
Women entering the work.
Why would your consumer base fall? Oh my god. I didn't even catch that when I first watched this. Andrew? Why would your consumer base fall? Because over half the population is not making any more money, Andrew. If they're not making any money, then they can't really consume anything or buy anything, can they? Oh my god! It's so stupid!
Workforce has brought so much money to the economy when you compare it to like if women were never... that those changes never happened. So the economy has 100% been benefited by women entering the workforce.
That's just empirical fact. She's completely correct. That's just empirically true. Ever since women have entered the workforce, I'm not a big fan of capitalism or anything. Obviously, look at the necklace I'm wearing. But at the same time, I can't deny when women enter the workforce, you see a big boom in GDP, productivity, the amount of money that could come in, because the more workers that you have, the more you can grow a business, and the more profit you'll be able to rake in because of it. It's basic economic common sense, Andrew.
No, wait. This isn't even up for debate. I'm sorry. Where are all of these? I'm sorry. Answer this. Where are all of these hyper-competitive countries that don't let women in the workforce because they want to be more competitive on the world stage? Can you name like
yes,
one?
Exactly.
You mean nations which are in the West? They're all egalitarian, and so they've all pushed for this.
They're not even close to egalitarian, but whatever.
However, we can. Yeah, and I'm answering your question.
You're not.
Egalitarianism would be no capitalism and no statism. He's not even using it correctly.
We can look at the markers before women entered in the workplace, and we were very prosperous.
Lower life expectancy, lower GDP, lower productivity. What are you talking about? What? He doesn't give a single metric, by the way, throughout the rest of this debate. I've already seen this. He doesn't give a single reason why we should believe that. He just says it very confidently and smugly until Destiny gets angry like he always does with these kinds of debates, and then he Joker laughs and acts like he won the debate because he pissed off Destiny. That's his entire fucking shtick.
First of all, no, we're not.
Yes, we were. We were very prosperous.
Where are the countries that are out-competing everybody else because they're like, we're not going to let our women enter the workforce because it's better for our country? Give me one.
Okay, again.
What he needs to do, instead of just examples of countries like that, he needs to push him for examples of where exactly were any countries that didn't allow women to enter the workforce, where were they prosperous at exactly? Not just examples of hyper-competitive countries, examples of where exactly these countries have been prosperous at.
You're making
let Andrew answer, and then we'll go to you.
Listen, there's a distinction to be made here. That even if I can't,
he's dodging. He is dodging so bad.
I'm telling you the truth. Right now, currently in existence in the West,
he's dodging so badly. He can't give a single example.
Oh, I couldn't point to one because of egalitarianism. But I can still use the historic marker to show that those same nations, before women entered the workforce in mass, were quite prosperous.
In what way?
Sorry.
I think it's like a decent point.
How did that not answer your question?
Because you didn't give a single example of how they were prosperous, dumb fuck. People are dying from a bunch of diseases. We have very low productivity at the time. It's basic common sense. The more workers you have, the more revenue you could generate, and the more productivity there is. Like I said before.
He asked you for an example of a country today that exists.
All Western nations were prosperous even before women entered the workforce.
What are you talking?
All of them.
He's just repeating himself over and over. He's just saying the shit over and over again with absolutely no examples. He's beating around the bush. He's probably just trying to think of one thing where they were more prosperous than modern societies. It doesn't even make sense from a common sense standpoint. We only keep getting more technologically advanced as time goes on. The economy is constantly growing because the population is constantly growing. Even from like a common sense standpoint, where exactly could they be more prosperous than us in any capacity? They were objectively worse off, and we're only continually getting better in terms of material conditions, life expectancy, all of these different metrics that we typically use to measure prosperity.
Argument that like women entering the workforce is like I don't know, has made it so reality TV has appeared. You're just correlating two things that aren't necessarily related to each other. The way that you would study this in econ is you wouldn't go, what was it like 500 years ago? And now let's compare it today. You would compare one country to other countries.
In econ, you wouldn't look at the historic standards? I think you would.
No, you would never look.
Point to the historic standards then. Destiny really needs to push him on this, but I don't think he really is, personally.
No, you don't look at. That's why when
You
do
don't
any
look at
econ
historic
research-
standards?
No. Open the NBR. Open any econ study ever. You don't say like, oh well, 50 years ago, what was it like? Let's see how this. Like, for instance, when you do minimum wage experiments, you go state by state. You pick placebo cities.
So when
You
a
compare-
Keynesian economist, sorry,
I
goes
don't know
to
what
the
you
goes
mean
it
by
if a
Keynesian economist, bro. I
Keynesian
don't have the
if a
political term. I'm just
Keynesian,
talking about
hang
the
on,
research.
stop. Whatever economist you want, but I'll just say Keynesian. If a Keynesian economist goes in and to a government position,
Do you even know what a Keynesian economist is? I highly doubt he could define that on the spot if Destiny pushed him on that, honestly.
and he wants to offer economic solutions, wouldn't he appeal to Keynes and Keynes markets and solutions? And those market solutions are going to be based.
Appealing to Keynes? What? When it comes to Austrian economics, who are you appealing to? Austria?
On those standards from that? What do you mean?
No, you don't go up to a guy and you go, "Hey, what about Keynes? Hey, what about the 1950s?"
You do.
No,
No, you don't. What? When you talk about anarcho-capitalism or something like that, who are you appealing to? Murray Rothbard?
Okay.
For
Well, first of all,
economics, of course you do.
No, you don't.
I'll even
No,
grant
you
you that. But they would highlight examples of, hey, this country implemented Keynesian economics or economic policies, and this is how it played out.
No, we don't use a historic standard, remember? Destiny just said you don't ever look at a historic standard when it comes to the economy. It's the most, that is the dumbest single thing I have ever heard in my life, by the way.
Policy that banned women
I have
from
never heard
work,
anything
and
that
resulted in
stupid
increase
in
GDP.
my life. Now,
Andrew,
I want to ask you,
What's going
Corey,
on?
do you think that it's unwise to look at historic standards when you're making economic policy, Corey?
Across the board, universally, no, there are some lessons to be learned from history, but to Destiny's point, like making economic policy today, generally speaking, is driven by data generated today and looking at other policies.
Yes, but
that
you're
other
still
countries-
looking at a historic standard and you're comparing the data. That way you know which is good and which is bad policy.
You haven't given a single example of what you're comparing, though. What exactly did historic standards before women entered the workforce do better than what we have right now in the 21st century? You still haven't named a single fucking thing, Andrew. And I'm surprised that Destiny, of all people, isn't even pushing back on that. Push him for an example. Push him into a corner and make him spurg out or whatever.
Can you give me an example?
How
of a
can you
major
make a
decision or
policy for the
single
future
piece of
with-
econ research that's looking back to the 1950s for modern day insight into how we should be doing government policy?
Oh yeah, well that's done all the time. Of course. Of
Then you
course.
should be able to name one time. It's
Yeah,
done.
well, I can send over tons of data that goes over 100
Name
years
one.
of
You just
economic
named all the
policy.
time.
Yes,
You
push
don't
them
I
know
just
about
did.
that.
Keynesian economics,
That's not
Austrian
a study,
economics.
that's not
Do you even know what the fuck those are?
a policy. That's not
No,
anything.
no, hang on. The Keynesian economics is our current policy, Destiny.
You're fuck. Oh god, why am I getting baited by this? I'm sorry.
Keynesian economics is our current. I'm sorry, it is.
Keynesian economics is a theory. It's not a fucking policy. What does that even have to do with the fucking with women entering the workforce century? Anyways, Keynesian economics has nothing to do with feminism, dude. What are you talking about?
Economics. That's why we're gonna raise the
Let's
rates.
not-
That's
let's
yeah, like,
Hang on. I promise Lauren can talk. Let her talk, and then we'll.
Yeah,
move on to
so-
the next topic.
Okay, Andrew, I agree with you a lot in this debate. However, with Destiny's point, why, for instance, wouldn't China like force all of the women to stay at home and then have all of the men be in the workforce if truly that was what created the most prosperous?
One of the biggest problems right now is a labor shortage. It's actually due to a lack of human beings.
That's a completely contradictory stance then. You simultaneously are complaining about a labor shortage, but at the same time you want to get rid of half the population from the workforce? Make that make sense. You're a pro-natalist, dude, and you need a large workforce to be able to support an ever-growing population. Why would you want to get rid of half of them? Why would you want to get rid of half the workforce just because they're women, especially when there are very important job fields such as nursing, teaching, other kinds of physical labor that women dominate? You want to just replace them with what? Men? Somehow? Do you want to just do nothing but try to birth a bunch of boys to be able to replace them or something? Even the concept of phasing them out, it doesn't make sense when you think about it for more than 5 seconds. Come on! And I'm surprised nobody ends up actually pushing him on this blatant contradiction in his views.
I
So wouldn't
Wait,
understand.
isn't a labor shortage good because it increases
Bro,
wages,
I'm trying-
Andrew?
Let me finish.
Yeah,
okay?
tell us. Remember the supply demand
No,
graph.
no, it has not increased wages. Wages have essentially been stagnant. There hasn't
Yes.
been much in the way
That's
of wage
true.
increases at all, Destiny.
Because of women, and I
No,
think
wait,
that's
hold on,
a lot of it is
explain it.
because of women in the workforce, actually.
There's a
So
labor
I think
shortage,
that
though,
is the
Andrew.
issue with
Less
women in the
workers.
workforce.
What's
if
that?
if you have more people in the workforce,
Yes,
you
it's
have
for. Hang on. Yes, Destiny. Wait a second. And since the labor shortage, that was basically the first time in my entire lifetime, probably yours too, where people could actually go in and begin to negotiate salaries because of this shortage. Yes, Destiny.
Yeah.
Okay, you get it now, Destiny. Yeah.
Yes, you proved the point.
There is no fucking way in hell that they're going to be able to negotiate their wages high enough to a point where it offsets the amount of salary and wages that women could bring into the household. Not at all. There is absolutely no data backing that up. He's completely making that shit up. Sure, you can maybe negotiate your wages a little bit higher, but it's not going to offset half the workforce going away and whatever salary they were able to bring into the household. Again, he just keeps repeating himself in different ways over and over and over again. And I'm going to cover every single one of it because he's a fucking idiot. And you need to really hammer home this kind of stuff whenever they just keep using the same point slightly reworded. You really need to be able to keep an eye on this kind of stuff.
So then answer Lauren's question. Why does he try to say, hey, so what? Okay, what was the
So
answer?
no, you need to concede. So concede on this point.
Why doesn't China tell women
First, back up and concede to the point that I was
I'm
correct.
not conceding anything to you.
So wages haven't been stagnant due to women in the workforce, even though you just said that. You won't.
What? There's no connection between women entering the workforce and stagnant wages. What do you mean? What's the fucking correlation?
Concede that point.
There's not even a correlation. There's nothing there.
Again, women in the workforce have increased the productivity and increased the real wages and increased every level of economic success, every indicator in every country around the world. That's why, to Lauren's question, why doesn't China tell women to stay home from work?
At this point, there is again a worker shortage, which is going on
He's
globally.
not answering the question. He has no answer.
You want the worker shortage, though, dude. That's literally what you're fucking proposing by getting rid of half the labor force. You want a worker shortage so that the people who remain are the ones that get higher salaries to offset it. That's your entire argument. So why aren't they removing women again? He's so incoherent.
Is the answer?
There's like a debate tactic, literally.
No, how is that not an answer?
Because I'm
Andrew,
asking you,
are
why
you
doesn't
saying
China
that-
stay?
Wait,
Why
let
doesn't
me
China?
let me see if I can bridge that gap. Andrew, are you saying that the reason that China doesn't tell women to stay at home is because there's a labor shortage? They don't have enough labor force to do that.
This is right now. This is a global phenomenon, and
Look
this
at him
has to do
rambling.
with the fact that China had a one-child policy, and it's the same.
Dog, if it's a global phenomenon, why would you want to get rid of women from the workforce? We're already having a global labor shortage. What is replacing getting women out of the workforce going to do to help that? Again, completely incoherent. He hasn't thought out any of this stuff at all.
Thing with our fertility rates here, we can't keep up with the supply right now. We just can't do it because you have the essentially the 18 to 30-year-olds are going to subsidize the generation.
If you can't even keep up with the supply right now, what do you think fucking getting rid of all the women from the workforce is going to do? We can't even do it right now. What's going to happen when we get rid of all the women? What are you replacing them with, Andrew? Tell us.
Before and the 4 generations after. And so you need this pool, but we're now entering into this section where you have this pool, which subsidizes all these generations, is so small that you have a huge labor shortage across the board. That's the one you need the most.
Why would getting rid of women from labor?
Hang on.
Yes, exactly.
I'm
Push
gonna
him on that,
bridge the
Destiny.
gap. I'll rephrase the question because I do see your point. Well, what about if we take a country like India, right? They have insane amounts of people being born. Why would they, like, following Destiny's logic, why would they not just exclude women from
Lauren's
the workforce?
logic. Thank you very much.
Well,
Or Lauren's
I
logic.
mean, India's caste system does often exclude women, and some of the Muslim nations often do exclude women. So I don't know what you're talking about. In this case, we're talking about a Western phenomenon.
Last I checked, Muslim nations aren't exactly prosperous, but whatever.
We have entered into a labor shortage
China's the West?
because of I'm talking
Japan's
about
the West?
I'm
Korea's
giving
the
you
West?
I'm giving
Wait,
you a
Destiny,
prop.
let him answer, let
And
him
by the
answer.
way, yes, South Korea is completely westernized, 100%. Do you disagree, Destiny?
I don't know what your definition of westernized is.
They listen to they're basically a U.S. port at this point.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Okay, they're basically, I mean, we run South Korea. South Korea is a massive American port. Our culture has definitely, since the Korean War, reframed South Korea. It's basically, it might as well just be like an extension of an American state at this point.
Andrew's right about that, but let's let him answer the.
No, I want Destiny to answer to this. Would you agree that that's true?
I'm not answering it until you answer the China question. You haven't answered it.
You just made a claim. You said, what about South Korea? Is that the West? Well, yeah, kind of.
Weaseling away. I made this claim because you said only Western countries do this, but countries around the
world.
world.
No, I'm not saying just the West. I was just giving you a reflection of the West.
Question one more time so the audience can hear you evade it. If you said that removing women from the workplace was good, why doesn't China just order it to happen? Because it would be good for the country.
Well, like I said, at the moment, China is dealing with a problem which happened from their one-child policy. They're dealing with a labor shortage as well because this key demographic that they rely on. All right. How is this not an answer?
No,
because you're saying there's a labor shortage, so they're not going to get. What?
He's answering the question.
He's completely incoherent on it, dude. Oh my gosh, there's really just not much to even say at this point, honestly.
Alex, he's saying there's a labor shortage, so they don't want to get women off of the workplace. What do you think would happen in the United States if we axed 50% of our workforce when our unemployment is like 3.25%?
Didn't say that you should axe it tomorrow. Well, I had a plan to gradually phase women out so that
and replace them with what? More men? Are you going to do eugenics or something like that? How are you going to replace them with more men when we can't exactly choose to birth a bunch of men? It's random a little bit, isn't it? Like, it makes no logistical sense. Where are they all going to go?
That women were more comfortable staying at home than in work. And so this way we could try to get our population back up because it's been completely devastated.
When you've moved off of day one supply and demand graphs, go look up like the lump of labor fallacy or literally any other type of reading you can do in econ to show how stupid this point is.
What is the lump of labor fallacy? Tell me.
The idea that there's like a fixed amount of work in the economy, and if we have too many people working, we're going to run out of work for everybody to do, Andrew. That's not true. I'm pretty sure there's literally a famous quote where it's like 95% of stupid econ ideas start with this idea that there's a limited amount of goods and services for everybody available. This is not true.
One minute warning. I've let this run way long because it's entertaining. I'll give you guys another minute to duel it out, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Anyway, yes, there's obviously an application to historical standards from economists. Of course there would be. Why wouldn't there be? Even if they're just looking at data from 5 or 10 years ago, that would still be them looking at historic data to make modern.
But that's not what you're proposing. You're arguing to go back to like the 19th century is what you're talking about here. Before women entered the workforce, you're moving the fucking goalpost a little bit here, man.
Prescriptions for the economy. Not only that, they often go back and look at different policies with different populations which worked and work off of that, which is why legislative bodies often reintroduce policies that, at one time were introduced and taken away for whatever reason, because there's an ebb and flow. So he
still hasn't given an example of how exactly these men-only patriarchal societies were more prosperous than what we have now, by the way. He hasn't given a single one. It's absolutely insane. I would have pushed him on that for sure. I don't know why they allowed it to go on and just let him completely dodge that point.
I don't really even understand this. As far as the labor shortage, yes, we had lockdowns, people getting out of work, plus China's one-child policy. Here, our fertility rate hasn't kept up. We have a key demographic, which we need to get up in the worst possible way. It's pretty simple.
I'll let Destiny respond, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
I don't even know how to. I don't know how to. He's not even wrong. Like, that's how juvenile the understanding is. Like, when you start to throw like supply demand.
That was a stupid way to fucking phrase it. He is obviously very wrong. I don't even know why he would say he's not even wrong. He's just very juvenile. I don't know why he would phrase it that way. I mean, I understand it, but at the same time, you just gave him a fucking coming up clip.
I know I'm not wrong.
To try to explain, well, this is how labor markets work. I mean, I brought up the lump of labor fallacy. There's a broken window fallacy. They did, well, if you break windows.
Yeah, that's about it with the debate. Oh my gosh. That was a horrible way to end it off for Destiny. But at the same time, Andrew completely dodged giving any kind of examples. He was very vague throughout the entire thing. He, for some ungodly reason, brought Keynesian and Austrian economics. I think he brought Austrian economics into this for absolutely no reason. This seems like it's supposed to be a debate about feminism and women in the workforce. Keynesian economics has nothing to do with that. You don't appeal to Keynes when you're talking about Keynesian economics. You're talking about an economic model, a economic theory, I mean. Like, when you talk about Marxism, are you appealing to Marx? No, he's been dead for like 200 years. Andrew's entire shtick when it comes to debating is saying the most outlandishly stupid stuff. He gets under the skin of whoever he's debating, and he just basically actively tries to piss them off to a point where they get visibly mad, such as Destiny here, such as other opponents he's debated, and then he just laughs confidently and smugly because he pissed them off. He has absolutely no substance as a debater. All he knows how to do is be performative. He doesn't know anything. He is very, very surface level at thinking at best. And all he does is, yeah, like I said, there's really not much else to say besides the fact that I hope one day he comes across somebody with a super level head who holds his feet to the fire. I personally love to debate him. I'm a pretty calm debater, I like to think. You can go see my other debates on my channel if you want, if you kind of want to see proof of that. But yeah, I really don't have much else to say on that. So if you liked what you saw, if you want to see a little bit more, a couple more debate analyses or anything like that, please like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next one.